Saving the Appearances, A Study in Idolatry, by Owen Barfield, 2nd edition. Introduction. There may be times when what is most needed is not so much a new discovery or a new idea as a different slant. I mean a comparatively slight readjustment of our way of looking at the things and ideas on which attention is already fixed. Draw a rectangular glass box in perspective. Not too precise perspective, for the receding lines must be kept parallel instead of converging. And look at it. It has a front and a back, a top and a bottom. But slide your hand across it in the required direction and look again. You may find that what you thought was the inside of the top has become its outside, while the outside of the front wall has changed to the inside of the back wall, and vice versa. The visual readjustment was slight, but the effect on the drawing has been far from slight, for the box has not only turned inside out, but is also lying at quite a different angle. The book which follows has been written in the belief that it might be possible to slide a sort of hand across a good many of the things and ideas upon which the attention of Western humanity has been concentrated for the last 200 or 300 years, and upon which the attention of the East is rapidly becoming fixed in the same way. The helping hand which it has been sought to apply in this way is simply a sustained acceptance by the reader of the relation assumed by physical science to subsist between human consciousness on the one hand, and on the other the familiar world of which that consciousness is aware. Physical science has for a long time stressed the enormous difference between what it investigates as the actual structure of the universe, including the earth and the phenomena or appearances which are presented by that structure to normal human consciousness. In tune with this, most philosophy, at all events since Kant, has heavily emphasized the participation of man's own mind in the creation or evocation of these phenomena. The first 3 short chapters are largely devoted to reminding the reader of that difference and that participation. About this conception of the relation between man and nature, which is wholly undisputed outside academic philosophy and largely undisputed within it, 2 things are noticeable, though they do not appear as yet to have been very widely noticed. One is an omission, and the other an assumption. In the first place, undisputed though it remains, it is, if we accept a certain school of genetic psychology now very much out of fashion, always left out of account in our approach to any subject outside the sphere of physics, such subjects, for example, as the history of the earth, the history of language, the history of thought. In the second place, it is invariably assumed that, whatever the truth may be about the psychological nexus between man and nature, it is an unchanging one, and is the same now as it was when men first appeared on earth. In this book, it is suggested that the assumption arose in the first place through clearly traceable historical causes, that the evidence is in favor of regarding it as illusory, and that its persistence in spite of that evidence is largely due to the omission. As to the omission, having established the gulf which yawns between the atomic physical structure of nature and the appearances of the familiar world, it is of course possible, it is certainly usual, if we are physicists, to continue undisturbed with our investigations of the unappearing atomic structure, and, if we are philosophers, to leave it at that, being content with the metaphysical curiosity we have produced. It is usual, but it is not really necessary to do so. We could, if we chose, take it seriously. We could keep the gulf steadily in sight instead of instantly forgetting all about it again, and see what effect that has on our knowledge of other things, such as the evolution of nature and man himself. Nor does this seem an unreasonable undertaking, since these are both matters, and the relation between them is a matter, to which the participation mentioned 4 paragraphs back must be at least relevant. The greater part of this book consists, in fact, of a rudimentary attempt to remedy the omission, but this involves, as already indicated, challenging the assumption, and a good deal of attention has been devoted to that aspect also. The result, and really the substance of the book, is a sort of outline sketch with one or two parts completed in greater detail, for a history of human consciousness, particularly the consciousness of Western humanity during the last 3,000 years or so. Finally, the consequences which flow from abandoning the assumption are found to be very far-reaching, and the last 3 chapters are concerned, theologically, with the bearing of participation, viewed now as an historical process, upon the origin, the predicament, and the destiny of man. (1) The rainbow. Look at a rainbow. While it lasts, it is, or appears to be, a great arc of many colors occupying a position out there in space. It touches the horizon between that chimney and that tree. A line drawn from the sun behind you and passing through your head would pierce the center of the circle of which it is part. And now, before it fades, recollect all you have ever been told about the rainbow and its causes, and ask yourself the question, is it really there? You know from memory that if there were a hillside 3 or 4 miles nearer than the present horizon, the rainbow would come to earth in front of, and not behind, that. That if you walked to the place where the rainbow ends, or seems to end, it would certainly not be there. In a word, reflection will assure you that the rainbow is the outcome of the sun, the raindrops, and your own vision. When I ask of an intangible appearance or representation, is it really there, I usually mean, is it there independently of my vision? Would it still be there, for instance, if I shut my eyes, if I moved towards or away from it? If this is what you also mean by really there, you will be tempted to add that the raindrops in the sun are really there, but the rainbow is not. Does it follow that, as soon as anybody sees a rainbow, there is one? In other words, that there is no difference between an hallucination or a madman's dream of a rainbow, perhaps on a clear day, and an actual rainbow? Certainly not. You were not the only one to see that rainbow. You had a friend with you. I forbear asking if you both saw the same rainbow, because this is a book about history rather than metaphysics, and these introductory chapters are merely intended to clear away certain misconceptions. Moreover, through the medium of language, you are well aware that thousands of others have seen rainbows in showery weather, but you have never heard of any sane person claiming to have seen one on a sunless or a cloudless day. Therefore, if a man tells you he sees a rainbow on a cloudless day, then, even if you are convinced that he means what he says, and is not simply lying, you will confidently affirm that the rainbow he sees is not there. In short, as far as being really there or not is concerned, the practical difference between a dream or hallucination of a rainbow and an actual rainbow is that, although each is a representation or appearance, that is, something which I perceive to be there, the second is a shared or collective representation. Now look at a tree. It is very different from a rainbow. If you approach it, it will still be there. Moreover, in this case, you can do more than look at it. You can hear the noise its leaves make in the wind. You can perhaps smell it. You can certainly touch it. Your senses combine to assure you that it is composed of what is called solid matter. Accord to the tree the same treatment that you accorded to the rainbow. Recollect all you have been told about matter and its ultimate structure, and ask yourself if the tree is really there. I am far from affirming dogmatically that the atoms, electrons, nuclei, etc., of which wood and all matter is said to be composed, are particular and identifiable objects like drops of rain. But if the particles, as I will here call them for convenience, are there, and are all that is there, then since the particles are no more like the thing I call a tree than the raindrops are like the thing I call a rainbow, it follows, I think, just as a rainbow is the outcome of the raindrops and my vision, so a tree is the outcome of the particles and my vision and my other sense perceptions. Whatever the particles themselves may be thought to be, the tree as such is a representation. And the difference, for me, between a tree and a complete hallucination of a tree is the same as the difference between a rainbow and an hallucination of a rainbow. In other words, a tree, which is really there, is a collective representation. The fact that a dream tree differs in kind from a real tree, and that it is just silly to try and mix them up, is indeed rather literally a matter of common sense. This background of particles is, of course, presumed in the case of raindrops themselves, no less than in that of trees. The relation, raindrops, rainbow, is a picture or analogy, not an instance of the relation, particles, representation. Or again, if anyone likes to press the argument still further and maintain that what is true of the drops must also be true of the particles themselves, and that there is no such thing as an extra mental reality, I shall not quarrel with him, but I shall leave him severely alone, because, as I say, this is not a book about metaphysics, and I have no desire to demonstrate that trees or rainbows or particles are not really there. A proposition which perhaps has not much meaning. This book is not being written because the author desires to put forward a theory of perception, but because it seems to him that certain wide consequences flowing from the hastily expanded sciences of the 19th and 20th centuries, and in particular their physics, have not been sufficiently considered in building up the general 20th century picture of the nature of the universe and of the history of the earth and man. A better term than particles would possibly be the unrepresented, since anything particular which amounts to a representation will always attract further physical analysis. Moreover, the atoms, protons, and electrons of modern physics are now perhaps more generally regarded not as particles, but as notional models or symbols of an unknown supersensible or subsensible base. All I seek to establish in these opening paragraphs is that, whatever may be thought about the unrepresented background of our perceptions, the familiar world which we see and know around us, the blue sky with white clouds in it, the noise of a waterfall or a motor bus, the shapes of flowers and their scent, the gesture and utterance of animals and the faces of our friends, the world too, which, apart from the special inquiry of physics, experts of all kinds methodically investigate, is a system of collective representations. The time comes when one must either accept this as the truth about the world or reject the theories of physics as an elaborate delusion. We cannot have it both ways.